Welcome back to On the Same Team. Whether you're on the mat, in the boardroom, or leading in your local community, building a championship culture always requires a similar playbook. Relentless collaboration, a positive mindset, and a commitment to helping the people around you. Today, we have a guest who embodies every single one of those traits. She is a true catalyst for growth in the Siouxland community and an absolute powerhouse when it comes to bringing people together. She's a certified John Maxwell leadership speaker who has even traveled to Costa Rica to work on country transformation. Locally, you know her as the owner of the Expansion Center, a hub for mind, body, and spirit development, and the owner of and publisher of Expand magazine. Whether she is constantly championing the powerful narrative of us, I'm gonna redo that. The Expansion Center, a hub for mind, body, and spirit development, and the owner and publisher of Expand magazine, where she is constantly championing the powerful narrative of us. On top of all that, she's the executive director of Explore Siouxland. We're going to dive into what it takes to trust your instincts, how to build a winning culture across completely different businesses, and why passion always has a ripple effect. Get ready to take some notes. Welcome Stacie Anderson to the team. Stacie, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I love conversation.
Well, I know, I think we connected maybe like a year and a half ago, I would say. I know I've done at least one Siouxland Chamber meetup at the Expansion Center, and then had a couple of my employees in your magazine. It's been It's been fun to learn more about what you do, and I'm excited to share that with some of our listeners. Again, thanks for being here. Well, I'd love to start with just the Maxwell leadership stuff. I know. I've read a few of the books, and definitely, I would say one of my passions is self-development. I love self-help books, probably too much. I read a very good piece of advice that I should read less because reading so many kept me from implementing the things that I was learning and valuing because I was just getting excited about the next one all the time. So I think I read that in the 4-hour work week. He's like, I limit myself to one self-help book every 3 months. And I was like, that's probably a good thing. And I've kind of implemented that and done some more casual reading. I love that stuff. And if you want to jump into a little bit of that, I'd love to hear, how you got into that and what you did.
That's great. Actually, I'm kind of giggling to myself here because I remember a very distinct point in time, same thing, I love books. There's books all over my house. My bookshelf's already full. They're piling around my home office desk. And I was told the same thing, don't grab more and more books. Go deep with one or two good books before you move on. So my balance, at least how I've approached this, because I like to consume and I love new ideas. I love new perspectives. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of audiobooks when I'm doing other things, working out, whatnot. So then I'm going through more. But yes, the tangible, which is my favorite, love the tangible book. Those I slow down with and I dissect. You'll never see me with the book without pens, highlighters. I write all over them. So yeah, I love that you mentioned that. But yes, John Maxwell. You talk about, you've read a few of his books. He's got, we're darn near 100 of them, I think, to choose from at this point. And he just put another one out here, I think a month ago, just keeps producing at nearly 80 years old. But he lives by a few things. One, he says not a day goes by, every single day. His day is about taking time to read, to write, and to file. Meaning as he's reading and writing things that stand out to him, he'll take that, he files it. So when he does want to speak or he writes, he has that reference point. He knows where to go and grab information with that filing. So when you are consistent, which is probably one of the least sexiest words out there, right, is consistency, but it is the most magical, powerful word, right? When we show up consistently day after day and we do what needs to be done, that's when you start to see the needle move, right? That's when you start later having massive impact, whether it's your business or your community. I love that. But I got involved, interestingly enough, with Maxwell, 11 years ago. I had been with Gunderson Jewelers for about 14 years, was in a capacity of sales, buyer, did some marketing, got my graduate gemologist degree. I'm a nerd first off. I love to learn, love to grow. So as soon as something feels like it plateaus, what else can we add? And I decided to make a change in my life and had left that after 14 years there, 20 years in the jewelry industry was a big life decision to make that shift. But I knew that there was no growth really left for me in that space. And again, that is my number one driver. I love to learn to grow. Secondly would be contributing to community, which I can do better when I'm growing myself, right? And so I left. I did have people around me, including my husband, going, are you sure? You've put so much time, effort, education. You're at that level now where it's easier and you're making good money. Why would you leave? Again, it was, I don't want to live a life that's wash and repeat. Wanted a new challenge to try something. I will say to anybody watching, for people out there, I would never change a thing about that. I love putting yourself out there, but you do have, and if someone's out there has done this, they'll get it. There are those moments that after you've jumped and you're starting at the bottom again of something new, you go, what did I do? And so I was having one of those moments, actually sitting in the parking lot at a Starbucks across from Gunderson's, having a tea and contemplating, what did I do? Right now I've got to hustle again, making significantly less money, trying something just new and challenging. I was scrolling through my phone and a video came up that had John Maxwell on it. And he was talking to someone who had written a letter in this video on social. And he was saying, you should consider joining my leadership team. And I literally grabbed, well, I already had my phone, but I switched from scrolling to calling the number and going, what is this? What is this leadership team? Because I've always, again, been growth orientated, love learning, and thought, this guy's got a team all around leadership, and he's the number one leadership person on the planet. And that's according to several organizations. That's where I want to go. And so that's kind of how that started. A simple phone call and jumping right in.
And so how has that evolved over in that and to being like a fan to now somebody that, organizes, the summit maybe is the word here in Siouxland, but like how has that evolved into what it is now?
So like I said, I think I'm about a 10th year with that team. My first few years, it was more just for me. It was that place to consume all this wisdom. I mean, if you're part of that team, he's got not only live calls with different lanes to learn from, but there's archive calls. I could sit and literally listen 24/7 and never consume all that they have for us. So it was for me, it was just giving me what I needed to be fueled up. And obviously that does come out in things that I'm doing, whether it's work or volunteer in contributing to this community. But it wasn't until later that I actually decided to bring that forward into the community. And part of that, and I've mentioned this because I have been for about 5 years now hosting the Maxwell Live to Lead events here in the fall. But I got a late start on that because I did go to a handful of business owners within this community and said, hey, what do you think? I think they meant it very lovingly, but the feedback I got was, Stacie, if you want to do leadership, you should really consider moving to Sioux Falls or to Omaha. Sioux City's blue collar, they're just not, they're not going to jump into this. And so that, and I hate to say it, but that slowed me down. It gave me some pause and, I got a much later start. So it wasn't until just about 5 years ago where I finally thought, you know what, I don't know what switch, but that it was a mindset switch where I finally thought, you know what, I'm here. I love leadership. I love growth. There's got to be other people like me, and I'm never going to find them unless I put myself out there. And I think that is a big thing. And one of the things I invite everybody to consider all the time is, put yourself out there. It can be scary. Yes, you could totally fail. But again, I think failure is just stepping stones to success. And that's how we learn and grow fastest. But yeah, go try something. Finally did. It got really great response. People really leaning in and saying, thank you. Thank you for recognizing that need. Thank you for seeing us, people like yourself, and providing that. So yeah, we're about 5 years strong into having those Live to Lead events. Those are just simply, I shouldn't say simply, but it's a license that I purchase on top of already what I do to be part of the Maxwell team. I go and get to see all of these speakers. So he has a day where he brings in top tier speakers, people like Malcolm Gladwell and Ed Milet, like really big names. They come in for a day. We get to hear from them. We meet them, all that. And then all of that is recorded and edited. And then again, that license I purchase, and they give me that digital download that I can then bring to my community and share all that wisdom. And so I love it. I've had a few people kind of push back and go, oh, well, they're not live. They're not here. Well, even if they were, here's my thing with that is, even if they were, you're probably not likely to go up and touch them, hug them. I don't know what you want to do with the live 3D version, but you're still in an audience. There's still separation. It's the value of their wisdom, of what they have to say, that's there, and that comes through. And what I like to do is facilitate some opportunities to learn and dissect in between each speaker. And that's something I've started doing the last couple of years, because I'm always getting feedback, because we're all learning, right? We're all learning, growing. And so I always am trying to get as much feedback as possible, how I can make, whether it's that or anything I do, make it better, make it so that it's received a little easier by those I'm trying to serve. So it's been a lot of fun to just watch that evolve and to grow. And mostly for me, again, because I love people, to be in a space with others who have that same passion to learn and grow and contribute and to serve with me is so rewarding.
Do you feel like there's been, like maybe an industry or just kind of curious what has been most supportive of that leadership event that you do, and if just wondering. I don't know if you're like, we get a lot of action here. There's a lot of people that have shared this and encouraged other people in this area to jump in.
I have certainly had, of course, it's shift over years. I used to have tables, so I'd say businesses that bought tables, or they buy rows when we move to theater seating. But the majority is one-offs. It is people deciding that they're worth it, and that they want to, to invest in their own growth, which I hugely respect and applaud, because it's one thing to go sit at a company table that your boss paid for, and you've got no skin in the game, right? And I almost feel, not always, but sometimes, and I'm not even talking about my event, I'm talking about, because I love to go to events and seminars and continue to learn, but I almost feel like when you look around, it's those individuals who you'll see scrolling on their phone the whole time. And I feel like, whether I should or not, I have the thoughts of, why are you here? Like, if you're here, but I'm also very big into being in the present moment, right? Like, we lose so much of what I think is the gold of being alive when we are either worried about something that's going to happen, like we're in the future or we're in the past. So being present, putting phones down, shutting off and if you're going to be at a conference or an event, lean in and learn. I also think that I always tell people, like, I go to so many things now because I've been pushing so hard, and I'm in the rooms of the best, the people like John Maxwell and the people he brings alongside him, or Dr. Joe Dispenza, all of these people. So I will say I've gone to a lot of these things where, honestly, maybe 90% of what I'm hearing, it's not new. So there's that component. However, it's when you shut off the phone, you stay really present, and you're listening intently. It's when something comes in differently. It comes in from a different direction, right? You might have already heard something before, but this is a different speaker saying it in a different way. And it takes that really deep presence and listening for that to really, again, it's like when you're saying with the books, right? Like, let's not just zoom through a whole bunch of books, but let's slow down. Let's go a little deeper. Let's pause. Like, if you just read a paragraph that really caused you to kind of sit back for a second and go, do that. Put the bookmark in it, put the book down, and just sit. And I think in general, people, myself included, but I'm getting better every day because I try, but we have a hard time with being still and being quiet, right? And especially as the world continues to push us towards being responsive, right? Social media and all the things are just trying to get our attention in shorter bits. And so I think there's a lot of value to slowing down, stopping, reflecting on something, maybe even taking it a step further. And again, like John does, read, write, file, go through that process where we're not just taking it in at a superficial level, but we're really going deep with it and we understand it beyond just its simplistic first point. So yeah.
I mean, I go to some insurance conventions and or summits, or whatever they call them at the time, but I find it super interesting. For me, I have to leave a family with 4 kids. My wife is taking care of them, so when I go there, I'm like, I'm here and I'm being very intentional, right? Because this time is super valuable, not only to me but to my family. And if they're going to sacrifice it as well, like, I'm going to suck every bit out of this thing. I always I think, when we're at those conventions, it's a real balance of there's so much to be learned in the sessions, and there's so much to be learned networking and communicating with other people that are there too. And but I've been to a few where it's like sometimes you get sucked a little bit too much into the networking side of it. And you're like, now I'm not taking anything from these sessions. Like there's you gotta those events. It's like it is a unique balance because yes, just like you said, talking about what you heard, even with someone else that was there and how they're gonna implement it, and changes your perspective to what you heard and think, oh, I never thought of it that way. But like they heard it different, like you mentioned it. And I would say it was the same thing. When I was coaching wrestling, I was relentless with just preaching the fundamentals and the way we were going to go about what we did every day because, inevitably they would be a junior or senior and they would say, hey, like, I'm going to start doing that. That makes sense. And you're like, okay, took 3 years, but, we got there. Yeah. I mean, everybody's on their own track. So, but that is so true.
I love that you brought up time, though, not to interrupt you, but I love that. And that's something, so I've been doing a lot of keynotes lately, been in Omaha, Des Moines just last week. And I always make sure to acknowledge that with the audience, and I give them my full everything. I call it segment intending. Like when I come into a new segment or a new space or a new room or doing something new, like to come into it with great intention and to be there and to acknowledge the fact that, again, especially if they've traveled or they're away from their family or there's work that needs to be done that, there's something in them pulling them to like, oh, I've got that to-do list and those emails and the things to do. They're there, right? They are there. They chose to be there with you. And it's just such a important thing, I think, to really acknowledge that so from both sides, right? As someone who is speaking or training, to acknowledge that they're there and appreciate the time, because that's I think the most valuable thing we have is our time. And then that flip side, which we already talked about again, is if you're going to be there, right? Be fully present and get everything you can out of it. Yeah.
So you started getting focused on the John Maxwell stuff when you left Greenberg's.
Gunderson's.
Right? Not Gunderson's.
Gunderson's.
Yeah.
Yep.
Getting the G's messed up. They'll be mad at me for getting those two mixed up. But you took over the magazine. And was that something that, did you have any experience in running a publication or, was that your first business that you ever owned?
Oh, no background in journalism or any of that. Actually, I didn't even know it was on the radar. It was such a spur of the moment thing. It literally happened because I was leaving a Toastmasters meeting and one of the other Toastmasters members was the photographer for the previous owner. And she says, as we're walking out to the parking lot after the meeting, hey, Susan's thinking of selling the magazine. And I literally blurted out, I want it. And it was one of those like out of the body experiences where all of a sudden you're like, did I just say that? Like, what? But again, I had left Gunderson's. I was in this place of, again, growth. And then number two, I had always felt in those first 20 years of my work life like I wasn't exactly in the right place. Like I always felt because of what I'd experienced as a child that I was to do something, and I hate to say this because I think everything is important and profound, but just I felt like I needed to do something. I feel like I'm here to help people wake up to the fact that this is a really big gift, that we are alive and that we are present. I lost my mom when I was 9 years old. She went out for a walk the week before Christmas and got hit by a drunk driver. And then I never saw her again. Like that changes you, right? It would change anybody to realize that we don't know. We don't know that we're going to have it tomorrow. And so I just really feel it's important that we recognize that this is a gift and that we show up. Again, this is kind of why I don't like the rinse and repeat. If we've already done something, I've already been there, I've already learned it, there's nothing else to get out of it. This life is too short for me just to rinse and repeat and do that. I want that new experience. So that's what really, I think, catapulted me to this wanting to do something different, to figure out what that was, to go a little slower. And so those months leading up to that, I had done a lot of that reflecting and that quiet time. And the only thing I knew for sure was I loved people. I feel like I really recognize and feel their heart. I can see pain. I get them. And I hope that I'm someone that can, even if just planting a seed of passion, a seed of this hope, a seed of wanting to go and do something more. But I think The two words I have used for at least a decade are communication and collaboration. I want to have better conversations. I use the tagline with Sulan Magazine, starting conversations, right? Let's start good conversations and let's come together. Let's collaborate. Let's make our families better, our community better, the world better, right? So when I had that moment where it's like this out of body, like, did I just say that? I think it was because somewhere deep down I knew like this was a vehicle to reach the community. Journalism would be my last thing. Writing would be I love live events. I love seeing people. I love feeling the energy, looking people in the eye. No, like writing would be the last thing I would do, but it was being presented to me kind of like, here's this thing for sale. It already exists. It's a communication channel with the community. And I was like, I want it. I want in on this opportunity to have a platform to reach people and to hopefully give them little bits of information and wisdom from different areas, from health and wellness to supporting growth through, entrepreneurship, community engagement, all that stuff. And so that's how that happened. It was not deliberate. It wasn't that I had the schooling or the background. It was just a heartfelt passion to connect with more people in this community and to serve at a different level and in a different way. It's been a learning, and it definitely fed my need to grow and learn, because boy, I had to learn really fast and just consume information and put myself out there. So yeah.
What was probably the thing that you were surprised most about when you became a business owner?
How lonely
you were
it
like,
is.
oh, I thought this would be, what was that? Sorry?
Lonely. It's lonely.
Yeah.
It's hard. It is hard. Like when you work for somebody else, you punch in, you punch out. Now, obviously, there's some exceptions to that where, people are working after hours and whatnot. But like, someone else is responsible for the paycheck, for the insurance, for all this stuff. If it succeeds or it fails, you're just there for your small part in it. And there's usually, again, you're working for somebody, there's other people. When you start your own business, and especially if you're starting where you have to start without a staff and it's just you, or it's, I had freelancers and, some stuff, but it's just different. It's not like I went to a place where I've got this team around me all day. Entrepreneurship can be really lonely. It can be really heavy. Right? That weight of knowing, and again, even though I just had freelance people, still they rely on that income, right? So I need to make this work so I can pay them. And then just the roller coaster. I think that's part of it too, right? Like you wake up and you're like, I've got this and I'm passionate and I'm excited and all the ideas are flowing. And then somewhere at 2 a.m, wake up and you're like, what am I doing? Get me off this thing. I want my paid benefits and vacation and all this stuff that, again, you don't have as a business owner unless it comes out of your pocket, right? So I think that was the biggest surprise, is just it's challenging. I call it's got the emotional roller coaster, and it can feel very lonely. However, I can't say how much I love it, in the fact that you have full freedom to do what you want to do. There's not the red tape and the protocols and the length of time it takes to make something happen from idea to implementation, right? So you can move faster. And I like being accountable, right? Like I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's a heavy weight, but I like all of that. And I think we're people, when I say we are, there's a certain type of people, entrepreneurs, small business owners, right? We're wired a little differently. We're okay with some of those things that feel like weight or burdens to that, because we love, on the other side of it, the freedom, which I always find to be a funny conversation when you talk to small business owners when I say freedom, because I think we work way more. I don't know when I'm ever not working. Before work, after work, in the middle of the night, like the brain just keeps thinking and ideas. So we're always plugged in, but the freedom and the flexibility and when and how, I guess, you show up is one of the things I think most of us really love about that.
I think for me, when I was getting into entrepreneurship and, I had some side hustles, but when I left my, what people will call a W-2 job, right, and became somebody that, when the bank looked at what I have, they're like, like, we don't trust that because it's not a W-2. Like, when I moved into that world of no W-2, what you said of the ability to move and make decisions and not have red tape. And I think I came from probably like the slowest, most, and maybe not red tape, but I worked at Morningside High Ed. I mean, it's so slow, and I guess I don't have that much context, like my wife worked for a publicly traded company. She'd probably argue that they were slower. But, like higher ed is pretty tradition, where it's like, hey, this is how we've done it. Like, we're going to do the same thing. And, we're here to educate people, I love that experience. It was, set me up for what I'm doing now. I went to school at Morningside. I worked there. I think I was part of Morningside for almost 20 years, whether as a student or a coach or, whatever it was that I was doing. I was essentially at Morningside for almost 20 years. So obviously I loved it. You don't do something for 20 years if you don't enjoy it. But, that the ability to just move quickly was a lot of fun. And, I think, again, like you said, some other people might be a little nervous by that, right? Like, but it fires me up. And I always go back to one of the things when I was coaching that I leaned on, because I second guessed myself a lot, because I'm like, hey, we had a good season. Why would I do something different? I heard a quote by Dan Gable, who's, arguably the, greatest wrestler, greatest coach of all time. He said in a video that he changed something every year in what he was doing. They won 9 national titles in a row, and he changed something every single year, and he was constantly trying to evolve. And that gave me a lot of freedom to do the same, and I've carried that into here too. But I think even when I'm here, some of my employees would probably say like, hey, we're doing well. Why are we going to do something different? But that's just one kind of the way I'm wired, and just the belief in, although we're doing well, I think there's another level we can get to, and if it is out there, like, I want to find it and test the waters in that level too. So
why would you want to plateau
that's
or be
ownership.
Stagnant, right? Like, to me, I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Why? Like, why would you want to just stop? And again, that's that rinse and repeat. I use that language. I probably need to come up with something better than that. But again, if you're plateauing, yes, you're doing well, but you've already done it. Like, I find that to be so boring. And I think, again, that's we're wired different, right? When we're in that, it's we've been there, done that. What's next? I want to flip the page. I want another chapter. I don't want to be done. So yeah, bring it on.
Yeah. And it's just like too, I think I heard somebody say, like, growth always happens on the fringes, right? Like when you're outside the norm and you're trying to get to the edge, I did a podcast with a coach from Dickinson State, and he's been a coach forever. And I think he was the one that he's like, I don't want to push my kids off the cliff, right? Because, then they're not going to come back. But you want to get them to the edge, and you want to make sure they're looking over and they're seeing like what could come next, and on all kinds of levels, like mentally, physically. It's like you got to get them to the edge so they can find out, where they can go to, and they can experience it a little bit. But at the same time, like, as a coach, you can't just make it unbelievably difficult and a place they never want to go back to. So it is a balance there too. It's kind of the way, I think entrepreneurs have to be wired, right? It's like we're always kind of on the edge and trying to figure out what the next step is.
Well, you better be, because if you're not pushing yourself to be better and to be, there was, and I'm going to mess up, but there's a quote, and I don't even remember who said it, but it was like, you've got to put yourself out of business, right? You have to keep coming up and being better and coming up with the next thing, because if you don't, someone else is going to, right? So and I love that, and the fact that too, I used to say I'm not competitive, which that's not true. I'm just not, I won't say not, but not so much competitive with others as much as I am with myself. To me, it's always, again, because I take time to reflect and to look at where I've come from and where I'm at, and then go, what could be better? What could be next? So I'm always competing with the past version of myself. And so I think that's a interesting way to look at things. I love Ed Milet. He's, a podcaster. Again, he's one of the speakers at Live to Lead several years ago. And he mentions quite often, and I love this, when he talks about when we've passed, and we go, and he uses this story about like when we go and we meet God, and he shows us who we were supposed to be, right, on the other side. And the hope is that when we get there, and we have that conversation with God and we meet who we were supposed to be, that we recognize that person, right? Versus not having any resemblance because we didn't show up and we didn't reach our potential and we didn't push ourselves to be that version of who we can become. And so I think I love when he tells it, and he tells it so much more eloquently than I am doing. But like, I love that idea of always going, okay, I don't want to have regret, right? Again, I've already mentioned this, so I won't keep going into it, but like, I just know that this is important. Today is important. It's a gift, and I need to do better than I did yesterday. I need to show up differently, and I need to keep moving towards that potential, even though I believe none of us will ever fully reach it, right? Hopefully not, because if you did, you're done. So, yeah. Like, hopefully there's always a little bit something more where we can grow into. Anyway, I love that thought.
Yeah. One of the things, like, I have 4 kids and I want them to be relentlessly competitive, but at the same time, and something I always talk to my guys too about, like, we don't want to bring our worth from our competition, right? So where you're at in the competition should not be like where you get your value as a pure person at, right? But I want to be super competitive. I want to go out there and I want to compete and test myself and again get to the edge and hopefully find somebody that's better than me that I can be like, okay, that was awesome. Like, I want to see where they were better than me at, and I want to kind of figure out, and that's where I think, like, the value in competition is you get the opportunity to see somebody that's better than you. And I just had a conversation with somebody that, like, life is hard because that competition isn't as clear as, like, when I was wrestling. That was super easy. I'd go out there and I knew, okay, his defense was better, his offense was better, position, he was better than me, and it was very clear feedback, and it was very consistent. Every week I'd go out there and I'd compete and I'd get feedback and I'd be able to go out and work out. Like, life is so much harder. The feedback is extremely fuzzy, right? You're not sure what the feedback's telling you, and it's hard to, like, dissect, like, where you should be improving or where your blind spots are. And I think that's the really hard thing about even owning a business, right? Like, financially, maybe you're doing well, but there might be something else that you're like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't see that coming, and that's really what sunk me. Or, like, I'm the type of person where the financial part is probably going to be the blind spot, right? That's why I hired a bookkeeper, because, that's a part that I don't see and I don't, think about as much as, like, the culture, and the energy, and, those are the things that I can feel and I can sense. But yeah, I love competition. I think it's super important. I want my kids to be competitive. I don't want them to get their value from where they finish and how they do.
Yeah, and so I want to back up just a little bit, because I do agree with you. And, I say here I'm not competitive, mostly with myself. I mean, there's a little bit that's a little BS, right? Like, we all have a little of that. But what I guess the distinction I would like to try to make here is in, like, I love when they say, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? Like, we need to have people who have gone farther than we have, because it's like the 4-minute mile, right? No one did it until they did it. We need to see what's possible. So from that perspective, I love to be around people who are smarter or more talented than I am, because then I see where I can go. It helps create that path. But I don't want it to be and I guess it's how we define competition. I don't want it to be in a way where it's me versus them, or them versus me, right? Like, I want to be able to cheer others on. And because I love that, again, I love people. So I want everybody to win. I want to be the one behind the scenes helping. Again, that's why I love training and coaching and all that. So to help move them. But then I want to win too, right? And we all win in different ways, I think. And that's something that I have to, and I encourage other people to do, is to wrestle with that every day. I have to do that, like, by design, the way humans, because I love everything about, like, neurology, our brains, all the stuff. We are wired for survival. Like, that is how we were created, right? So our brains will look for what's wrong because it wants to know how to survive. And so that part of competition, comparing, understanding our environment, whether it's safe, like, all of that comes into play. But every day I want to wrestle with that a little bit and go, okay, I don't want to live, even though my brain's wired this way, I don't want to live in the space of scarcity. I want to live in the space of abundance. I want to live in the space of community and collaboration, right? So even though I know I'm wired this way, even though it comes up on the daily and it needs to, I also need to wrestle with that a little bit and go, okay, there's enough for everybody, right? We can all win. I can support and cheer somebody else on when it's their time, and hopefully they'll do the same for me when it's my time. So
Yeah.
just my little thought on that.
Yeah. And, it's so funny that so many of those things are like your perspective too, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, abundance is a perspective, and scarcity is a perspective, and how, the environment we in can create that perspective, and like, yeah. And I tell that to my team all the time. It's like, if you were looking at where we're at now last year, you'd be like, man, that's amazing. That was not imaginable. But now you look at it and you're like, hey, something else should be different. Which is, fine and good, but you just also have to realize that, right? Like, realize where your viewpoint is right now, and understand, where you're at and where you're trying to go. And, those are all things that are fun. And I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, but like, we use a performance coach in my agency that meets with, my people as they want to. Meets with some of them every other week. I meet with him weekly. He might meet with some people weekly. I don't really monitor, how much he does, but he's been super important for us. And that's really what he does so well, is like reframes our perspective, and just gets people to understand, like, when you're successful, like, it's a lot about your mindset, and like, things outside the work that are influencing you. And then when things don't feel like you're being successful, it's the same. It's like a lot of things that are outside that are influencing you, or your perspective, or your mindset in the moment, right? That's a lot of times what it is, right? Is like, it's that moment, and it's how we feel and how we show up, not necessarily like the opportunity. The opportunity's generally about the same every day. It's just how we show up that day. So he's been awesome, and I encourage a lot of people to use, I'm always like, this is like the thing where I'm like, I mean, I want to be the best, so I don't always want to like give away all my best ideas, but at the same time, it's like, like, it's been so impactful for us, and I love it. I think it's a huge thing, and I think it's a great investment, right? And I think, like, in sports, you hear a lot more about like the mental game, right? And the mental side of sports. And that has come a long way in the last, 20 years of, coaching the mental game. And people will say, not like, oh, it's 50% mental, right? And I hear that a lot more in every sport. There used to be a few sports where you'd hear like, oh, it's really a mental game. It's like, people are like, every game is a mental game, right? There isn't one that isn't. And I feel like it's starting to make its way into like business and stuff like that too, where like your employees and their ability to have the right mindset and win that mental battle is pivotal to your success in business as well. And I love having a coach, and he's been super impactful. So this is a lot of the conversations we have too. Like, sometimes it's like, hey, this can only go an hour. Okay, we got to stop getting into such deep conversations sometimes, and get back to like, hey, like, we're here to like run a business too. So yeah, but those things are fun. Do you do any like private and personal coaching?
I'm not doing as much these days because I've got a new role that's consuming my days, but I love it. I love it. But again, I love supporting people. I'm curious by nature. And again, I think that comes from my childhood, right? Just questioning the world and why did the bad things happen and all of that. So I'm very curious. I like to ask questions, and I like to layer them. I like to really get down to the depths of things. So, and help people see things differently and look at things from different perspectives. And I get bored with what's already been done. So I'm always looking at how do we innovate? How do we do it differently? And I also really enjoy this is an imagination thing, right? But like putting myself in someone else's shoes, in the respect of like, again, if I'm a speaker or putting on an event, I will go sit at every different table, different chair. I'll think about what it looks like from this angle. Do I have to turn my head? What's the smell like in the room? What's the lighting? Is it like, I like to really dissect everything down from the different perspectives. So then if it's a customer or someone reading the magazine and they're reading it, am I giving them enough information that they can do something with it, right? And it changes their life. And when I say change life, they're the only ones that change their life. But maybe it's giving them the tool or perspective or something that all of a sudden they have that aha moment where they're like, all right, I'm shifting. I'm going to start prioritizing my health. I've been working, maybe they are an entrepreneur and they're working really, really long hours and they're grinding all the time. We've got to be very careful that we are still taking time for our health and our wellness, because that will burn out and that, or we'll get sick. Something will happen if we don't. So just giving them those things that will cause them to pause, reflect, and maybe make a little shift, hopefully for the better.
Yeah, that's my current state. Like I need to find that balance a little better. I have an aunt that is an entrepreneur, and she really influenced me and was a big part of it. But she's also, a workaholic like crazy. I've had many people tell me she's the hardest working person they've ever met in their entire life. And, I would agree. The same statement here, and I always say that like I need to be careful because like I'm wired like her. I love being here and I love growing it and I love those things, but it's like you got to be careful because I love a lot of other things too, like my family and my time with my kids. That's another battle entrepreneurs I think need to wrestle with daily. Where do you want to spend your time? Yeah, one of the things that's been hard. But I shouldn't say hard, but I've been fighting to do and need to just I would say my coach would say like you need to do it faster, is hiring somebody to take over my roles and do the things that I'm doing and I enjoy, and I don't necessarily want to give up, but it's also like when you lay out your priorities, like do those things allow you to align with where you say your priorities are. So yeah, that's entrepreneurship stuff. But one thing I want to get back to what you're doing now. I want to talk about that. We could do this for another couple hours. We might have to do an episode number 2. Right?
Yeah, there we go. Yes, what am I doing now? So as of beginning of the year, January 2026, I am the executive director of Explore Siouxland, which I am thoroughly enjoying. So for those who might not know, that is our DMO, or previously it was called the CVB, but DMO just means Destination Marketing Organization. So all that means is our full objective is to bring tourism into our community. So 50 miles out, we are marketing, we are selling, trying to get events here, trying to get leisure travel to come here, because when visitors come to our community, they're infusing dollars here, which means those that live here don't have as much property taxes that they have to pay, right? Because we're getting outside dollars helping to support. And I also think it's really important for people to realize that like I love my local small businesses. So, I mean, almost everything that I buy now is from my clothes, local boutiques and local stores. But most local, especially smaller stores, they can't exist usually on just the dollars from the people in their community. They actually rely on travelers and people coming from outside our community to spend money as well, to keep their doors open. So there's a lot of things that come into play with what we do as far as bringing tourism here. Again, just it helps with all of that. And again, as there's more people coming in, more money, there's more things to do, right? It's quality of life. So it affects the quality of life for all of those that live here too, because we have more attractions and then we add more amenities. And then to keep up with all of those people coming in, more restaurants open up and whatnot. So I love it. I love, love this community. Was born and raised here. Did leave for a short stint, but came back. But love the community. Love to travel. That was one of those things early on. When I talk about coming back for a short period of time, I went to Morningside College, and my plan was once I graduated was to move down south. I do love my sunshine and warmer weather, and then met my husband. And so back then, of course, this is a long time ago, 27 years ago, I think, I used to use a language, which I'm trying still to retract, even though I'm still saying it. I would say I'm stuck here. However, that was the best stuck that ever happened. Like, once you start to have a family and you start becoming part of a community, like I love this community. I love the people here. We're just really kind, hardworking, generous people. And so the deal was, though, back then when I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to stay here and it's cold a lot, we're going to travel a lot. So that has been a big part of our lives. We've been to, I think, at least 9, 10 countries. We travel every year at least once, if not 2 or 3 times, typically out of the country. Just now starting to do a little bit more, which I should have done a long time ago, but doing a lot more, national parks. And we did my first anyway, full on road trip last summer and spent a long little stint driving, and we did Colorado and whatnot, just driving through all of it. But I love it. I love travel. I love this community. And when this opportunity came up, it just felt like the perfect intersection, right, of 2 things I just really passionately love. So really excited to be in this role right now.
What are some of I'm sure you'll get deeper and deeper into it as you are in the role, but what are some of the things that, the organization champions or facilitates or does that, people maybe don't know about or they've heard of, they just didn't realize that you and the organization were a part of it?
Great question. And in all reality, I don't even know that a lot of people not that long ago, didn't even know who we were, that we were here, right? So that became very clear to me more so in this last year. And part of that is by design, right? Again, at DMO, we're marketing outside, about a 50-mile radius out to bring outside people in. That dynamic is changing a little bit in our industry as of recent, especially with COVID and whatnot. By design, if we're constantly spending all of our dollars, all of our efforts talking 50 miles out, how would anybody within our inner circle know who we are, what we're doing, right? So in January, I started doing a lot more education, trying to get the community to understand a little bit about how we work, how we can help. So I brought in Bill Geist, who is an expert in DMOs for about 30 years, has a podcast, a book. He does consulting in this area. So we had that, and then just through city council meetings and whatnot, trying to do that educational piece. We are doing a lot of new initiatives. So I hired a sales director here end of January, and then just got a marketing brand director here. Boy, I don't think we're even 2 weeks in yet. She's really new, both fantastic. And so together we're really taking on some new initiatives, and again, more and more educating, collaboration. Again, I go back to what's my passion, right? Communication, collaboration. So we are having lots of meetings and getting together with all of our attractions, finding out how we can support them, because some of them don't really have much dollars around marketing and those initiatives. So we can take their messaging when we know about their events and what they're doing, and we can make that go further for them. So we are kind of that extra support arm for all of those. And the thing that I'm really trying to do now is we're doing meetings. I'm bringing them together in different genres, if you will. I've got all the people from the different organizations that are around nature, right? So for when we're trying to market to people who love hiking and fishing and nature things, I've got that group of people. Or if they're in the arts, I've got that group of people. So bringing them together, because I also think that we could be doing a better job, not that we're not doing a good job, but there's always room for improvement, but a better job of communicating with each other, right? So then we aren't having events overlapping. There's nothing worse than when I look at a calendar and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's nothing going on all week, but then there's 2 things that I want to go to both and they're at the same time. So trying to get that communication better, and then kind of the next step is helping them to understand how they can, or how we can help support stacking. So what I mean by that is, if we are going to market this and try to get people to come into the community for an event, can we have maybe there's a couple other organizations that are planning events, can we get them to do it close enough together? So maybe it's like a Friday and a Saturday and a Sunday event, and now we market, hey, come and stay for a few days. Because if we get people here and then we keep them here, now we've got hotel rooms, we've got food, they're probably going to do a little shopping, they're getting gas, again, more dollars are infused here. So we're trying to be, and as we should be, that organization that helps bring everything together, gets that bigger picture, and then again helps them go a little further with that messaging. The other thing I will mention is we are tomorrow, I think, launching tomorrow, a community calendar, and I think it is going to be the most robust community calendar Siouxland has ever seen. We have invested a lot of money in about 4 months into this thing. It is the software is a My understanding is it's a agent of Google, so it's got a lot of AI techie stuff that will help to pull even without us having to manually submit and put in events. It will pull within our area events and auto pop those into there for us. Of course, we will every so many hours we approve or deny those things. So it needs a little bit of humans still in there. Thank goodness we got to keep humans working right with an AI world. But yeah, it should be a really, really good resource for everyone to go and see and combat. One of the things I hate more than anything is there's nothing to do in Siouxland. How often do we? Oh, there's nothing to do here. There is so much to do here. You just have to be plugged in and know what it is. And so that will help with that. And then it will also, I hope, help with when people are planning their nonprofit fundraisers, events, sporting events, whatever. We can look at that and try not to overlap schedules, and that we're smoothing that process out a little bit more. So really excited about that. And then I guess the last thing I would also say is we are going to be having, I think it's May 13th. We're having an event at the Art Center at 4:00 where we've got asks out to people within the community, but really anybody could come that has an interest. But we're wanting to discuss again who we are as a community, as a brand, Siouxland, right? Like, yes, we've got multiple small towns, communities that make up Siouxland, and they all have their own uniqueness in who they and what they are, but we need to be able to extract a little bit of that to have a narrative of the overarching who we are as a Siouxland community, because again, it helps us then again to be able to market and sell that to tourists. So excited for that conversation. And just I've noticed as of recent, there's been a lot of different people, especially on social. I've noticed like this is interesting that it's coming up now, but people just saying we need to look at this. Like, we're tired of some of the old narratives of who we were as a community, right? Like the old, and I'm not even gonna say what they are because I'm wanting them to get dissolved. Yeah. But yeah, so really, hopefully, I think what I'm hoping for is just more pride, right? More pride that each one of us can carry in being from this Siouxland area and being better advocates, right? So when we do have people come into town, that each one of us, there's nothing I enjoy more. Well, maybe there's other things I enjoy more, but something I really enjoy is like maybe a Friday night I'm done working and I go down to Marno and I have a pizza. And on one particular Friday night, it's way busier, and I can definitely tell that we've got an event in town, right? Like, these are out of towners, to lean in and literally make conversation with strangers and ask them what brought them in and how long are they here for. And if they've got like little kids, go, hey, did you guys know we have this really great launch pad, children's museum you could go to, and give them suggestions, right? Be an advocate for our community, for those attractions. And again, it makes the visitors' lives, it makes people's lives better. That's what it comes down to. I want to make people's lives better.
Yeah. I love those things. I love the calendar idea. I think, I come from Nebraska, and I don't really know if Nebraska's tagline's the same, but, at one point their tagline was, "It's not for everybody." And it kind of cracked me up, but, when I heard that, I'm like, that might be true and whatever. But, I'm like, I loved it. Like, and I loved everything that other people thought was not to love, and that's kind of how I look at it. Even Siouxland or whatever, you can say all those things, but like, those are also things that, I love about Sioux City probably, right? Like, there's nothing to do, whatever. When people say that, I'm like, well, I love it when like I have to think of things to do. I don't want someone like jamming all these opportunities down my throat and telling me like, you should do this, that, and the other. Like, I'll create my own environment and fun and just talk to people and go out and socialize, right? Like, that's something to do. And, and I also, like, for me, I hate traffic. So I've never wanted to live in a large city that has something to do all the time, like that is just not attractive to me at all. I don't want to be somewhere that is that busy. So again, like we've been talking about all the time, it's always perspective, right? Like, Sioux City is the best community, and I would say Siouxland because I live on the outskirts now, but it's the best community for me and my family, right? And I really value being here, and I love the people. I think there's great people everywhere, but these are the people that I want to pour into because, these are the people my kids are growing up with and that they're going to be influenced by, and it always comes down to too, like, again, it's like, you're just going to be positive about where you're at, and people have a positive experience being around positivity too. So yeah, I'm excited that you're in that role. Excited to see where you go with it. Yeah, I think Siouxland's lucky to have somebody that's passionate about the community involved in that role. So appreciate you being there and doing that. All right, I'm gonna ask you 3 more questions before we get out of here. The first one sounds like it might be difficult because you read a lot, but do you have a book that you'd recommend to
Favorite book.
people if you had to pick one?
Yeah, hard. I heard it once said, and I love it. When they ask, what's your favorite book? The one I'm reading now, right? That's such a good answer. But I also understand the question wanting to give somebody an idea. So I would say right now, Dr. Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being You. That, because, wow, there's so many reasons. But again, I love understanding how our brain works, how we're basically programmed, right? Again, and that's done by design. Again, we are meant to conserve energy. And so from when we're little, the first 5-6 years of our lives, we are in kind of that theta delta brainwave state. Everything is open to be absorbed, not to be analyzed, because we're learning. And so we learn things. We become habitual. You ask somebody what's their day look like compared to the day before? We wake up from the same side of the bed we slept on the night before. We wake up the same way. We go and we do the same things, whether it's get your coffee, take your shower, we go to work, we drive the same way, we do the same things, we're around the same people. So much about our lives is exactly the way it was the day before. And so our past really becomes our future, unless we step into that beautiful, as Dr. Joe would say, generous present moment. And we actually have that awareness that everything is within our control if we are aware, right? I love the other saying where they say, if we really knew how powerful our thoughts were, we would never let a thought slip by our awareness, right? Without being aware of it. So that's that power to create change. So if we don't like something about our life and we want it to be different, the only way that happens is when we become very hyper aware of our thoughts and how that whole cycle works. Because when we have a thought, it literally releases a chemical in our brain. So we have a chemical reaction that then in turn creates more thoughts, and we get in this loop of thought and feeling and then our actions, and then our lives are just the same, and we loop. And so again, being someone who loves to grow and who wants to innovate and change and see things evolve, right? I want to have that kind of a great, awesome life experience. I need to understand everything that book has to offer about how our brains work and how the chemicals and, again, thoughts and chemicals and actions and how we loop and how to break that loop very consciously so that I can be in that state where I can create and I can make my life how I want that to look. There's so many great books, of course. I mean, Dr. John Maxwell, he's got a ton of great books too. One of my favorites from him is probably, oh my gosh, why am I going to butcher the title right now? Everyone communicates, few connect, right? I love that, again, because I think I'm a very passionate, emotional being, and it's all about connection, right? If you can't connect with somebody, they aren't going to hear anything you have to say, right? You're just dumping information. So I think that is really critical too, as people who need to communicate, to do things in our lives, connect first. So I think that is, for my 2 favorite mentors who are part of my life, those are the 2 books I would go to for leadership, starting with that connection so you can communicate well, and then Dr. Joe's Breaking the Habit of Being You, my 2 favorite books. Yeah.
Love those. What's a habit that you have daily that you feel like has helped you be successful?
Well, so when we were talking a little bit ago here about just being an entrepreneur, long hours, working all the time, burnout, and the reality of all of that, there was a moment where I had to make some decisions, make some shifts. So there was a lot of things I did, from deciding to start doing weightlifting, doing yoga, doing things that slowed, and then things that slowed me down, like yoga. I really met that with a lot of resistance. And I was told by a mentor that the things you resist persist. So you got to lean into them. Slowing down was really hard for me. I always felt like my worth was dependent upon doing things and serving, right? There had to be some actionable piece to that. And then that led to leaning in and looking at meditation. That's where Dr. Joe Dispenza came into my world. So I would have never today ever thought 5 years ago that I could sit down and meditate for 5 minutes. So what does a personality like me do when there's something you can't do? I signed up to go to an advanced week-long meditation retreat. Over 40 hours of meditation in 1 week. I think day 4, the longest meditation was from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., 5 hours straight. It's like taking someone who doesn't know how to swim and throw me in the deepest end of the pool with no life preserver. That's kind of how I roll. So I'm like, I went into it uncomfortable, very resistant. I found it to be life-saving. It was around that time that my daughter went off to college, and she has my travel bug, and so she decided right out of the gate she was going to go to Malaga, Spain for her first year of college. So I went from, having her all the time to going off to college and not having parents' weekends or visits, just 8 months gone. Meditation is, I think, what got me through, to be able to get familiar with, which is all meditation means, get familiar with myself. Right? To be able to sit in a quiet space, to be still, to become familiar with my thoughts, my feelings, how to process. I like to kind of equate or pair up, I don't know what the right words are here, but prayer and meditation to me kind of go hand in hand, right? It's the space and time that I give myself in the morning, for sure, throughout the day if I need to find little moments, or at the end of the day, but in the morning when my brain wave is still more in that theta brainwave state, it's slower, it's more open, to be in that space of quiet, in a place of, again, like, to me, prayer is not asking. Prayer is being in a place of appreciation and gratitude, right? I am thankful to God every day for the fact that I get to wake up and I get to be here, right? To me, that's a gift, to be here. And then to be in that space, again, in meditation, to just sit quietly, to have the thoughts. And I do like to mention people, and they're like, oh, I can never meditate. Probably they say that because they think what I thought, that it's something monks do on the top of a mountain and you have to empty your mind out. It's not what it's about at all. Again, it's about being familiar with. So you will think, I've never completely emptied my mind, but it is your time to hear your thoughts, to feel your feelings. It's when you aren't responding to emails or people needing you to do something, or all the outside world. It's just closing my eyes, my ears, closing out the world. And I like to use the analogy like a radio dial, like turning down the dial on everything external and turning it up on the internal, being able to hear everything that I'm feeling, thinking, even if it's just thoughts of, oh, I have all these things to do. It's kind of like cleaning your email out, right? Delete, organize, prioritize. When you walk away from that meditation, that prayer time, just going, I'm in a really good head, heart space now. For me too, breath work. So, and breath work is my other non-negotiable. So when you're asking like mindset habits, it's giving myself space in the morning to meditate, to pray, to do some breath work. I love doing cold showers. Like, I love all the biohacking stuff. Again, I need to be good so that I can be good for others. Like, I can't, they always say you can't give from an empty cup, right? I gotta take care of me so that I can serve at a bigger, higher, better level than I could if I didn't take those things. So.
All right, last question. If you had a day with no responsibility, what would you spend it doing?
Gosh. Day with no responsibility. I mean, my favorite, I love nature. I love being outdoors. So it would still start the same way. Would probably start sleeping in a little bit, although I don't sleep in too much anymore. But sleeping in a little, just a slower start. Some, meditation, some movement. Headed outdoors. I would love to go just be with people that I love, have some really good food, which means clean, fresh, healthy, organic foods, eating, having great, nothing's better to me than great conversation. Like, I just love to sit and have great conversation. And then, again, I'm a sunshine girl. So like, if there could be an ocean or beach somewhere in that day that I could just go lay and listen to the ocean waves roll in, read a really good book, and then probably end the day with maybe some dancing. I do love dance. I love music live. Let's make it live. We're making it my day. Live concert. I love live music. Yeah. And then just drifting off.
Love that. Well, I appreciate you jumping on here with me, Stacie. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
come see me. I love her. No, best way. Yeah. So, gosh. I mean, yes, there's all the social stuff. I don't necessarily always put my cell phone around here, but you can find it. I mean, if you go to the website for Expand, it's Expand to More, Expand the number 2 more. That's the website for the magazine and all my leadership stuff. My cell phone's right on there. Like I always want to be accessible to people so we can have good conversation. But my favorite way to connect is, again, let's go have maybe for them coffee. I like a good cup of tea, and let's talk. But yeah.
Okay. Well, make sure people can find expand2more.com and connect with you. Or your office space is on 4th Street, correct?
Yep, right on 4th Street. So Explore Siouxland office is up on the 2nd floor of that building. So, yep, the Englehart building right across from Heidman Law Firm, the end of 4th Street. So, yeah, stop in.
Awesome. Thanks again, Stacie. Good to have you on here.
Yeah, and thank you. I mean, I really, Jacob, just really appreciate that you do this. I love that people are embracing this and doing podcasts and starting really good conversations. And just, I love the questions that you ask and the heart and what you're bringing to the table with this. So thank you for doing this for the community.
Yeah, it's a blast. I mean, I've met a lot of really good people, and I tell people all the time, like, podcasting, was a little bit scary at first, but I mean, really, every time I get on one, I get fired up. I'm excited for the next one. So if people are thinking about doing it, hit me up, get on my podcast, we'll have a conversation, and then you can start your own.
Thank you, and thanks everyone that's tuning in. I love it.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Stacie.